think that the shift started to go towards the more troubling end of things maybe 4 or 5 years ago, 2022, 2023. Often there is this seam of belief within Silicon Valley that is a little bit like Musk, but often not quite as provocative. I think that he likes the idea of being public enemy number one, of effectively being a sort of a supervillain to large swathes of the world and a hero to those who believe in what he says.
Now, Elon Musk is no longer a trillionaire as SpaceX shares continue their slump, but the world's richest man has another focus, spending much of the weekend feverishly posting on his X platform about the concept of remigration that's widely used to mean the expulsion or mass deportation of migrants, and among the far right to mean the mass deportation of non-white or foreign people. He's also declared the editor-in-chief of The Economist to be a traitor to the West after she challenged him in an interview.
I would like to just admonish you and the media for the absurd characterization of the far right. It is false and misleading and nonsense. Please keep this part in.
We'll keep all of this in, but let me
Don't cut this part.
Let me push back on that. Let me push back on that
because it is
you have
nonsense.
Elon, you have, what is it, close to 250 million followers on X.
Yeah, because
you say things like,
popular guy.
Quote, civil war in Britain is inevitable. Just a question of when.
On the current trend, yes.
I mean, when were you last in the UK?
A few years ago.
Exactly.
Very good. Elon Musk speaking to Zanny Minton Beddoes there. Extraordinary. Within the last 10 days, Musk has also posted that those he calls traitors need to be dealt with before those branded invaders. There you are. Tech journalist Chris Stokel-Walker joins us now. Good afternoon, Chris. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Ryan, for having me.
Look, let's just talk about that clip for a minute. I mean, he doesn't sound particularly well.
Well, yes. I mean, has Elon Musk ever been well? I think some of his opponents might suggest. And certainly he is Marmite in his views. They are becoming increasingly unpalatable to an awful lot of people. And this interview with The Economist, I think, was the latest in another attempt for him to try and garner the headlines by saying increasingly obscure, increasingly strident, increasingly concerning things. And what is, I think, more worrying about this, Ryan, is the way in which this has taken a much more sinister turn, starting to try and put public perceptions against the media and against his interviewees simply for asking very basic questions about his beliefs.
And Chris, I mean, you've been watching this man for a number of years. Where was the point? When did he stop being an extraordinary scientist, businessman, entrepreneur, and become this very radicalized, slightly crazy horse?
Well, the challenge, Ryan, is that he can still be both, and he is indeed still both, and that's the real, very difficult thing with covering Elon Musk and what we've discussed with Jane Fee week in, week out about the challenges of this man who is, on the one hand, brilliant for humanity, advancing it in many ways, helping us clean up our vehicles, our transport system, pushing us increasingly into outer space, while also holding pretty reprehensible views and not being ashamed of poking the bear and trying to get those across using his own personal megaphone. So really, I think the shift started to go towards the more troubling end of things maybe 4 or 5 years ago, 2022, 2023. Often there is this seam of belief within Silicon Valley that is a little bit like Musk, but often not quite as provocative. I think that he likes the idea of being public enemy number one, of effectively being a sort of a supervillain to large swathes of the world and a hero to those who believe in what he says. And so really what we've seen, I think, since then is the kind of moving away from that very publicly good entrepreneur towards much more of an agent provocateur. And the worrying thing, of course, is that he's also been involved in American politics very intimately in that time as well.
With mixed results, as we know. But the dance with him, the dance with the devil, if you like, is it the case that we in the West have to depend on much of what he has to offer us, and therefore we almost have to indulge his quote-unquote bratish behaviour
Yeah, this is the big challenge that we have. So, Musk runs Starlink, the satellite internet company. Increasingly, if you travel on an airplane, you are being connected to the internet mid-flight because of his satellites. But that's the public convenience side. There is also the life and death side, which is he controls the satellite internet that is used to dictate the troop movements, the decisions that are made in the fog of war in the middle of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and has often been criticized for taking one side or the other in pulling the plug on Starlink or allowing it to continue. But that is the unreal, unpalatable truth about Elon Musk, is that actually, if we want to continue with having good communications, if we want to continue on this road of decarbonising our transport system, if we want to, frankly, have a large social media platform of the likes that he still owns on X, even if he turns it into a kind of alt-right, far-right echo chamber, then we do have to figure out how we deal with him. And the reality is that he is someone for whom there often isn't the sort of norms and rules of shame that most people would have. He actually enjoys being seen as this person who prods and pokes at the bruise. So you can't really rationalize what he does. And we saw that just with the Economist interview, but we've seen this with many other outlets that have tried to interview him.
Yeah,
why would Elon Musk benefit from the civil unrest that he seems very keen to invoke in the UK?
I think that, truthfully, it's just that he likes to be seen as power. I don't think it's necessarily that it's actually he gets a monetary return from it, although one of the good things about having this is that controversy equals cash, particularly in the world of X. He took it over, as we discussed back in October 2022, and tried to reshape it into a platform in his own making, one that was much more permissive to unpalatable views, as many people might see it, much more of a free speech crusader. And so I think that having that space that can be seen as you are the evocative, provocative person means that actually brand Musk benefits. And even through some of the challenges in terms of the loss of sales of Tesla, as we saw in the United States, but more so in Europe and the UK when he was really starting to dabble in this unpalatable space, I think what it is the oxygen of popularity, of fame, does well for brand Musk, both in terms of it helps build awareness of his companies, because we end up talking about it, as we just have. I've mentioned Starlink, I've mentioned Tesla, I've mentioned SpaceX, I've mentioned X. All of these companies he ends up capitalizing on from that, but also just because he's filthy rich, and it doesn't really matter all that much if his businesses do benefit. He likes being talked about. We end up talking about him, even if it's in a kind of negative way, in a sort of distasteful way. Yeah. He still enjoys that.
But Chris is so vulgar. The whole thing is so preposterous. I mean, why, with all his money and all his fame or infamy, why couldn't he? I mean, I know this might sound kind of naive, but wouldn't it be lovely if he put it into being a force for good rather than a maniacal attention seeker in the shadows?
It would, but the challenge, Ryan, is that I think that he is a true believer of this, and so he thinks he is doing good. Yeah, I think that he partly thinks that he is just kind of prodding the bruise and poking at us and making fun of us and being an internet troll. But I also think that there is, based on his public statements on social media, a firmly held belief here. He talks about it enough times in enough public forums that I believe that he often trusts in and believes a lot of what he says, so we have to take it.
His lack of education about places. I mean, the journalists there asked him, Zanny Minton Beddoes was asking, when was the last time you were in the UK? There was stuff kicked off in Belfast not too long ago. I'm sure he's not a regular to the Empire or whatever hotel, the Europa Hotel in Belfast. He just loves, like, it's kind of like we're back to ancient Greece. He's on Mount Olympus and he's using the world as his chessboard. He's mad. Yeah,
he's a Greek god. He is a Roman emperor. We are his pawns. And the reality is he owns a large number of really vital companies to our society. He owns also, as he described it himself when he launched his bid for Twitter, now X, the de facto public town square. And so really, when we talk about monopolizing businesses and the harms that can potentially come from that, or at least the way in which public public opinion and debate can be swayed in many ways. This is a perfect example of it. In an ideal world, Ryan, I wouldn't be talking about Elon Musk all the time, but I do.
That. Yeah, no, but he has brought such extraordinary technology to the world. I mean, he cannot be dismissed as simple. Is anyone in this conversation on X? Are you on X?
No, so I stopped being on X.
What about you, Chris? Are you on X? Do you have to be professionally?
I do. I think professionally, although I will say that the last couple of days are making me reevaluate again. But the sad reality, Ryan, is that this is probably the 4th or 5th time that I've had to reevaluate this in the last 3 or 4 years, which tells us something about that.
Yeah, well, just for the record, I ran away from Twitter a long time ago. We'll do Instagram. I like it. I think it's a nice place to be, but that's not the point here, I suppose. But X, you say X is the town square. I think X was the town square once. I now think it's the stocks in this village square.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It is a place that is now unpalatable. It's a place where you kind of go to ogle and to wince when things are shaping out. And that is in large part because of the way that Elon Musk has dictated what we see through the algorithm. So one of the things that I found this morning when I woke up was that I was bombarded with clips of this interview by him, which I presume he's maybe pushed a little button to try and push that into lots of people's feeds because he thinks that it reflects very well on him. That is the reality now. This is kind of a very odd space where actually you go more to look almost as if it's a car crash than you do to be informed about the world. And as a journalist who used to rely on that platform an awful lot 10 or 15 years ago to understand how the world works, it's very different because actually this is a really warped view of the world these days.
And do you think finally there are people listening in saying, there they go, those liberal types on the radio bashing another great hero of ours? I mean, are we being unfair to the man in any way? Is there a side to him that we should be exploring more?
Well, he was correct in the sense that he said that he is more liked than the media is. So, if we look in the US, then about 1 in 4 people trust the media. If we look in the UK, around about 1 in 5. YouGov's polling on Elon Musk fluctuates an awful lot, but around about a slightly larger proportion of people still find him useful or interesting and admire him.
Chris, you've been great. Thanks so much for that insight. Appreciate it very much. Tech journalist Chris Stokel-Walker joining us there with that insight into the extraordinary world of Elon Musk.